Joran wiped the sweat from his brow as he locked up the greenhouse for the night. The air was warm, thick with the scent of blooming earth and the faint spice of alien crops. Life on Earth had changed ever since interstellar treaties allowed extraterrestrial species to settle. Some blended in well. Others caused trouble. And he had a feeling trouble was lurking nearby. Something had been stealing from his farm. Strange, small hands had been plucking his ripest fruits, leaving only torn stems behind. Joran had set up motion sensors, but the little thief was too fast. So tonight, he was ready. He had rigged the field with a simple trap, a set of snare lines near his prize crop. If anything moved too quickly through them, it would trigger the net. He stepped into the shadows, waiting. The minutes stretched. The moon shone silver over the rows of plants, their alien leaves rustling gently in the night breeze. Then, a whisper of movement. A delicate shadow darted between the vines. Joran barely had time to register the lithe figure before his trap snapped shut. A gasp, followed by a soft thump as the intruder fell, tangled in the net. "Got you!" Joran strode forward, grabbing his lantern and holding it high. The figure twisted, revealing her. He wasn't expecting an HFY, a race known for their feline grace and mischievous nature. She had shimmering lavender skin, her long, flowing silver hair spilling over her shoulders in waves. Large golden eyes blinked up at him, pupils dilated like a startled cat's. Joran had seen plenty of HFY in the city, but this one, she was breathtaking, and completely caught. "Oh," she breathed, her lips curving into a guilty smile. "Well, that's embarrassing." Joran folded his arms. "Care to explain?" She tilted her head, strands of her hair shifting like liquid silk. "I prefer fleeing to explaining." She wiggled in the net, but the cords held firm. Joran arched a brow. "That's not happening." Her eyes gleamed. "Are you sure? Because I'm very, very good at escaping." Joran crouched down, watching her. "Not tonight." She huffed dramatically. "Fine. You caught me. What's my punishment?" He hadn't actually thought about that. Normally, a thief would be turned over to the local authorities, but something about her made him hesitate. Joran smirked. "I'll decide in the morning." She pouted. "You're leaving me like this?" "Yep." She groaned but didn't seem truly upset. If anything, she looked intrigued. Joran leaned in slightly, enjoying the way her breath hitched. "What's your name?" She hesitated, then sighed. "Rochelle." Joran nodded. "Well, Rochelle, I hope you're comfortable. You're staying the night." Her golden eyes narrowed playfully. "You really don't know what you've gotten yourself into, human." Joran only grinned. Morning sunlight spilled over the farm, casting golden hues across the fields. Joran stepped out of his house, stretching his arms as he took in the peaceful view. He had expected to find Rochelle sulking or struggling in the net, but instead, she was lounging in it like a hammock, arms folded behind her head, legs crossed at the ankle. She looked perfectly at ease, her silver hair glinting in the sunlight. "You sleep well?" Joran asked, amused. "Better than I expected," Rochelle replied with a lazy smile. "Though I had some very interesting dreams." She rolled onto her side, propping her head up with one hand. "So, what's my punishment, farmer?" Joran leaned against a fence post, considering her. Still thinking about it. Rochelle's golden eyes sparkled with mischief. "Oh, you like keeping me in suspense." He did, a little. Joran moved to untie the net, but before he could finish, Rochelle twisted free in a blink, landing lightly on her feet. She stretched, tail flicking behind her. "You could have escaped any time, couldn't you?" Joran asked, crossing his arms. She grinned. "Maybe. But watching you try to figure out what to do with me was fun." He exhaled, shaking his head. "Your trouble. I've been told." Rochelle walked past him, running her fingers along one of the greenhouse posts. "So? What's my sentence? Hard labor? A lecture on stealing?" She leaned closer, voice dropping. "Or maybe something more creative?" Joran felt the heat of her gaze, but he wasn't going to let her tease him so easily. "You're working for me," he said firmly. Rochelle blinked. "Excuse me. You want my crops? You earn them. No more stealing. You help me for a week and I'll feed you properly." Rochelle scoffed, placing a hand on her hip. "You think you can just tame me with farm work?" Joran smirked. "You scared of a little effort?" She rolled her eyes. "Fine. But I have conditions." Joran chuckled. "You're not in a position to bargain." Too late. Rochelle stepped up to him, standing close enough that he could catch the faint scent of something floral on her skin. "First, I get to sample whatever I pick." Joran thought about it. "Fine. Second, I get to take breaks whenever I want." "Nope." Rochelle pouted. "You're no fun." Joran shrugged. "You'll live." She sighed dramatically. "All right, fine, boss." She poked his chest lightly. "Just don't get too used to having me around." Joran watched her saunter toward the fields, tail flicking playfully. Somehow, he had a feeling she wasn't going anywhere. The first day of Rochelle's punishment was anything but normal. Joran quickly realized that having an Avriai helping on the farm was like trying to herd a playful storm. Rochelle was fast, almost too fast. She flitted between the rows of crops, plucking ripe fruit before Joran could even point them out. She would toss them in the air, juggle them, or, if she caught him watching, take a slow, exaggerated bite while holding eye contact. "You're supposed to be working, not putting on a show," Joran called from where he was sorting a crate of vegetables. Rochelle grinned and spun on her heel. Multitasking. She tossed a ripe starfruit toward him, and he barely caught it in time. "See? You get free entertainment." Joran shook his head. "You're impossible." But admit it, you'd be bored without me." He didn't answer that. Hours passed, the sun climbing higher. Rochelle worked, but on her terms. Sometimes she disappeared for a while, only to reappear in the oddest places, perched on the roof, sprawled under a tree, or hanging upside down from a fence beam. Each time, she'd flash him a playful smile, daring him to scold her. Joran tried to keep things professional, but it was difficult when she looked at him like that. Her golden eyes, sharp with mischief, held a flicker of something deeper, something he wasn't sure he was ready to name. By midday, Joran wiped sweat from his brow and stood, stretching. "All right, break time." Rochelle perked up from where she was sprawled in the grass. "Finally!" She bounded up, stretching in a way that made her toned figure all too distracting. "I was starting to think you'd work me to death." Joran handed her a cool drink. "You barely did half of what I did." She took a sip, her lips curving into a sly smile. "That's because you take things too seriously. Farming's supposed to be about patience and rhythm, isn't it? You should relax more." Joran arched a brow. "Relaxing doesn't grow food." "No, but enjoying yourself does." Rochelle leaned closer, her voice lowering. "You do enjoy my company, don't you, farmer?" Joran met her gaze. For once, there was no teasing in it, just a quiet challenge, waiting for his answer. Instead of giving her what she wanted, he smirked. "You're tolerable." Rochelle gasped dramatically. "Tolerable? I'll have you know, I'm incredibly charming." Joran chuckled, taking a seat on the wooden bench outside his house. "That's debatable." Rochelle plopped down beside him, her tail lazily flicking. "Well, I like you." Joran nearly choked on his drink. He turned to look at her, but she was staring off at the sky, as if she hadn't just casually thrown those words out. She smiled, soft this time. "You're different from most humans I've met. Most of them either get nervous around me or try to impress me. You just treat me like a person." Joran felt an odd warmth settle in his chest. He hadn't expected honesty from her, not so soon. Before he could respond, Rochelle suddenly leaned in, her breath warm against his ear. "But that doesn't mean I won't still drive you crazy." Then, just like that, she darted away, laughing as she disappeared into the fields. Joran exhaled, rubbing his temples. He was in so much trouble. The week passed faster than Joran expected. What was supposed to be a punishment had somehow turned into something else, something dangerous in a way he hadn't planned for. Rochelle was everywhere. She made herself at home on his farm, in his space, in his thoughts. She was still a menace, of course. She stole bites of fruit when she thought he wasn't looking. She slipped away during chores, only to reappear with that playful smirk, acting as if she'd never left. And whenever he tried to scold her, she'd lean in just a little too close, her golden eyes full of something that made it impossible to stay mad. But she also worked. Maybe not in the way he expected, but she helped. She was fast, efficient, and, when she wasn't teasing him, she was surprisingly thoughtful. Joran found himself looking forward to their morning routines. To the way she'd hum alien melodies while sorting crop. To the way she stretched like a lazy cat under the sun when they took break. To the way she laughed, light and unguarded, when she caught him staring for too long. And then, suddenly, it was the last night. Joran stood at the edge of his farm, watching the horizon burn with deep oranges and purples. Rochelle was beside him, her silver hair catching the fading light. She'd been quiet for the last hour, which was unlike her. "You're leaving tomorrow," Joran said, breaking the silence. Rochelle's tail flicked once, then stilled. "Yeah." Joran had expected a joke, some teasing remark about how much he'd miss her. Instead, she just stood there, eyes fixed on the sky. He turned to face her. "I could use the extra help. If you wanted to stay longer." Rochelle finally looked at him. "You want me to stay?" Joran exhaled, rubbing the back of his neck. "I wouldn't mind." A slow smile curved her lips. But this time, it wasn't mischievous. It was soft. She stepped closer. Not teasing, not playing a game, just close. "I've never stayed in one place this long," she admitted, voice quiet. "Never thought I'd want to." Joran's pulse picked up. She was so close now, her warmth sinking into his skin. "Rochelle." She reached up, fingers brushing against his collar. "If I stay," her golden eyes locked onto his. "What will you do about it?" Joran didn't hesitate. He closed the distance, capturing her lips in a slow, heated kiss. Rochelle melted into him, her hands gripping his shirt, her body pressing against his like she'd been waiting for this. When they finally broke apart, she was breathless, her cheeks flushed a deep violet. "Well," she murmured, lips curling, "that was definitely a better punishment than farm work." Joran chuckled, tucking a strand of her silver hair behind her ear. "Stay." Rochelle grinned. "Only if you keep punishing me like that." Joran laughed, pulling her back into another kiss. She wasn't going anywhere,